Welcome everyone to the JBK Show. It's not every day you get to talk to one of the best Australian basketball players of all time.
The best.
The best.
Oh, wow, thank you.
No, mate, a pleasure to have you on. Andrew Bogut, thank you for joining us.
No worries, great to be here. Nice studio, man.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And luxurious.
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're having a crack.
We can fit a 7-foot person in here.
Yeah. And I've done my research. Croatian last name.
Yep.
One of the boys from the area.
That's it.
Now, mate, talk us through your background because, we have a younger brother. I'll call him out Gabriel. We're like, mate, we're stoked. We've got Andrew Bogut on the show. Can't wait to interview him. He started binging your highlights last night because he's gotten into his basketball lately. How did you make your way into basketball? Because as a kid, you played
Tennis,
AFL. I mean, you're a tall bloke. Could have been a ruckman. Probably could have been anything.
I did gymnastics too, funnily
id
enough.
you do gymnastics?
That's a comedy within itself.
Yeah. How did you go, okay, I'm going to be a basketballer?
I just fell in love with the game at an early age. I played, first was gymnastics because the parents thought it'd be great to drive my sister and I at the same place because my sister was doing gymnastics. I hated it. Hated gymnastics. All I liked was the trampoline and they didn't let me go on that shit enough. Then did Taekwondo, then did AFL, and then I was like, I liked AFL. The old lady didn't really like it, getting in the car, muddy, Melbourne winters, all that shit. Mm-hmm. And then my old man had a mechanical workshop. He was a mechanic. And next door were panel beaters. So they drilled this metal, those old Kmart rings with just two little screws into the wall, but they used to use it to hang up parts that they spray painted. Started chucking a ball through that.
How was the backboard on that?
It was straight into the bricks. And then just fell in love with the game and told my parents, hey, I want to play basketball. And they're like, this is it. If you change sports again, no more. It's expensive, equipment fees. This is it. And I'm like, yep, I'm sold. And that was at about 8 or 9 years old and started playing and was in love with the game, like literally in love with the game. Would watch it on TV when I was inside and it was raining. Would shoot in the rain outside. My dad put floodlights up in the backyard so I could shoot till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And
wow.
That was all she wrote.
Because I read when you were 15, you got cut from the Victoria State team. Mm-hmm. Is that true? And was it warranted?
Twice. Yeah, I got cut under 14s, under 16s from the rep team, Dandenong Rangers rep team, and then ended up moving clubs. And then I kind of went downhill and then worked my way back up and then went to the under 18s tryout and thought I was a chance to make it. And I got emergency. So basically what that meant was if someone got hurt before the Nationals, I would fill in, right? So I still got to train with the team.
You know, Tonya Hardy take someone out?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. But yeah, that was, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here today. Like, it really pissed me off. And the fact that I got to train with all those guys, by the end of that, because you train for 3 or 4 months before you go to the Nationals, I was probably the best player on that team by the time they took off for Nationals, and I wasn't in the squad, if that made sense.
So it's a Michael Jordan story, chip on your shoulder.
Somewhat. Yeah. You need that. Like, I seriously, I think if I made that team, I probably wouldn't be to the level. I probably would have been like NBL would have been more of my ceiling.
You've spoken about that in the past about like how important failure is, whether it's in business or whether it's as an athlete. The etymology, but so you go from a young age playing basketball to making your way to college and playing in the US collegiate system. How did you make your way to Utah?
They just recruited me early through. So Brian Gorgon, national team coach right now, basketball legend in Australia. I trained with the Victoria Titans, who are now defunct, who were in the NBL back in the day. And he called a guy named Ken Shields, who's a Canadian guy. He was kind of had his fingerprints on Steve Nash as a young fella in Canada, Canadian basketball legend, and said, man, there's this kid who's really good. Ken Shields happened to be there for a couple of weeks when I was training with him. And then he called Rick Majerus, who was the head coach of the University of Utah, and they sent a scout out straight away. And I kind of committed to them pretty quickly, because I knew Rick Majerus was a really good coach. I didn't know how crazy and psycho he was until I got there. He was a very good high basketball IQ, but he made me question how much I love the game, I'll tell you that much.
How was playing college basketball, especially like as an Aussie? That's already unique enough, but now you're best player in the in the country.
Because going over now, Americans love Australians.
Yeah.
The accents, but how was it back then? Pretty much similar?
No, it's normalised now. Back then there was Aussies going to college, but not really big schools or a few. But to go over there and actually my freshman year, I wasn't awesome. I was very consistent and solid, 12 and 10 a night. But then the second year, I just blew up. And to come from Australia, and I guess my pathway, a lot of kids have tried to follow, and it just proved, even going number 1 in the draft, like, hey, you can go from Australia and end up going over there and doing well.
Because the football team, when you were there, they were one of the best in the country as well. When you walked among them, were you the king among them? Were you still?
It was a basketball school when I signed there, and then you're right. Like our school started to turn into a football school, so there's a little rivalry there.
Urban Meyer was there.
Yeah, football versus basketball was a little rivalry because we're like, no, we're a basketball school, and then football took over because they were really good, and then we got to that level as well. So it was really cool because, and a stat that you probably don't know is University of Utah is the only school in the history in NCAA history to have #1 picks for football and basketball in the same year. So it was myself and Alex Smith. Yeah, which is I think it's still to this day. Yeah.
We playing in college. While you're at college, you played for the Boomers in the Olympics.
Yep.
How did that impact you going and being the #1 draft pick?
Huge. So that was between my first year in college and my second. So freshman year, I have an okay year. I go back home, play for the Boomers. End up starting as a 19-year-old in the Athens Olympics.
19.
Yep.
In Greece.
Yeah, in Greece. First game against Greece, funnily enough.
No time for partying either.
Nah. And that gave me so I've gone from playing. College is still, I wouldn't call it boys, but it's they're not grown men.
Oh, still young men.
Yeah, 18 to 22 years old. I'm not fully developed, and then you go there and I'm wrestling against Tim Duncan and all these kind of superstars. Played relatively well in the Olympics.
Play that dream team.
Yeah, we almost beat them too. We had it, and then Allen Iverson pinged like 2 or 3 threes late in the fourth quarter and got them over the line. But that's when they weren't that good. They finished third in that one.
Yeah.
But that confidence from I went from grown men then back to college. I felt like I'm back playing against boys again. I'm gonna dominate this shit, and that's kind of the mentality I had, just because it springboarded me to my second year in college, and then obviously dominated that year and went #1.
What about the expectation? So you play a year of college, you go drafted #1. There's a lot of expectation that goes with being the first draft pick. How did you take that going into your first season in the NBA?
It was hard. It's unknown territory. You can't teach or nurture someone into how to handle that. Like you got to go. It's your own path. You got to learn from, like you said, failures and mistakes. And I guess the lucky thing for me was that I went to a smaller market, right? Like I think if I went to LA or New York with the scrutiny that goes on, not just #1 picks, but just first round picks, it's immense. And I probably wouldn't handle that well. I was could fly under the radar in Milwaukee, a smaller market. We weren't that good. We were kind of middle of the pack, and
it's cold there too.
Yeah. So that really helped. But yeah, it's tough, man, because it's the back of your mind, and you feel like, I need to be the best player out of that draft class, which I wasn't. Chris Paul was. But I still think, I was pretty consistent my rookie year. I still was top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting, so I was kind of close. But it definitely took me a year or two to kind of, settle into my game in the NBA.
Well, I mean, you got an NBA champion. Chris Paul doesn't, so.
Let's hope he doesn't get one this year. KD there.
No, but I was going to say, talking about getting into the NBA, did you have like a welcome to the NBA moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm in the NBA, like I'm getting, I'm playing against Tim Duncan, I'm playing against Shaq. Like, how did that happen?
Somewhat, yeah. I remember like just getting rookie hazed. Like I had to get donuts for every shoot around at home. So I'd have to get Krispy Kremes for the boys. I'd have to buy birthday cakes whenever it was a birthday, and no one would eat the shit. Like it was just like they just used to make you do it just to do it. Like especially the birthday cake, I just got to get a shitty one and they wouldn't even eat it. They just like make you run the errand to put you out a little bit. But they were a bit hard on me being all the rookie errands, and I remember I hit a game winner my rookie year against the Spurs against Tim Duncan, who just won the championship the year before. Hit a game winner, come back to the locker room. I'm like, yeah, motherfuckers, rookie that, like talking shit. One of the vets is like, hey, you're still a rookie tomorrow. So I just like back down to earth, and then back to rookie duties the next day.
And then coming into the NBA, you came in after your second year. NBA players now, they mostly come out of their freshman year, and they get injured a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think that players should spend more time in college, season their bodies before they get to the NBA? Because it's a real problem now. So many people get injured.
Yeah, no, I don't think it makes a huge difference. I think, like you look at Zion, I don't think that mattered if he went to 4 years. I mean, it's just some of it comes down to luck. Like my injuries were all just unlucky car accident type injuries, like just being an idiot trying to put my body on the line at times and whatnot. It's an interesting question. I think like your real kind of underdeveloped guys, and that was me. Like when I came to the NBA my rookie year, this is the likes of Shaq.
You were like
Ben Wallace, Tim Duncan, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, all these big 7-footers, like burly dudes, and I was just I was 235, so what's that? Just over 100 kilos, 105 kilos, and I'm like, these dudes have 15, 20 kilos on me. Dwight Howard, he used to annihilate me in my career, and I was like, shit, like I need to grow into my body. So I could have definitely used another year in college, but I knew like I'm not going to risk because start of my sophomore year it was like first round pick, late first round. Then by mid sophomore year it was like, oh no shit, he's top 15. Then it was top 10. Then it was top 5. I'm not going to risk that to come back for another year and potentially do my knee or hurt myself. And then my stock goes. And then the thing is, you come back for a third, fourth year, they overanalyze you because you're so good. So they start nitpicking things.
Yeah.
So I knew the moment was right, but I don't think my body was ready. But I had to jump.
Yeah.
Then you get traded early on in your career, or kind of later
Midway
in your career,
through.
midway
7,
through,
8 years in, yeah.
to the Golden State Warriors. Now, at that time you got traded, did you envision yourself winning a championship there?
No, no way. No way. So I put in a trade request silently. I didn't do it through the media, but I felt like Milwaukee at that point was a revolving door. No, we couldn't get any stability. We finally had a good year, I think in 2009-10. That was my best year individually.
Yeah.
I
All
made
NBA
all
third
NBA.
team. Yeah.
Every stat, I've been watching on Instagram. And we finally had a good team. We were 6th seed. We went 7 games with Atlanta. I think I didn't play in that series because I broke my elbow, but I thought we were starting to put together. And the next season they bring in 8 or 9 new players again. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like,
And you were trying to build like fan presence there. There was that time you were like
Squad 6.
You get squad 6
Yeah,
in
it
the
was
stands.
awesome. It was the best
where
thing
you
ever.
bought tickets for fans to come down because Milwaukee, it's cold. It's hard to get people to
Yeah,
games.
100%.
You kind of started this kind of like trend to get people. You bought 100 plus tickets.
100 tickets every game. The only thing you had to do was just act like as loud and act a fool, and it became its own little identity. It was awesome, man. Like they started these group of people. They would meet at 5 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game and write shit about opposing players and have puns and chants and stuff. We had opposing because no one did it in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
So we had opposing team players flip them off, get mad at them because they were like getting in their heads.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
an
was,
awesome
it was-
atmosphere. That's kind
was
of
awesome.
gone from sports.
Yeah,
today
it was
too.
awesome. But yeah, back to the Milwaukee thing. So then 2 years after that year, I was like, look, man, like ship sailed. I think like let's just move on from each other amicably. And they were like, oh, we're not going to trade you. This is after the lockout year. You know, you would get good value back at that time. You're top 5 big. We're not going to get good value. We're not going to trade you. 2 weeks later, I break my ankle. GM's in the hot seat, coaches in the hot seat. So they're like, fuck, like he's out for the season. So then they then
Bite the bullet.
that moved me from Monte Ellis. I get to Golden State, and they're just as bad as Milwaukee. It's probably even worse. Of a revolving.
But you're in
door.
San Fran.
I think-
nice
yeah,
location.
well, Oakland.
Oh yeah, at the time. Yeah.
Nah, but decent. I loved it there, but the franchise was at
Yeah, that like 2008 to 2013 period.
Awful.
I think they were the worst team in the NBA.
yeah, real bad. It was revolving door. There was no stability. It was all that kind of stuff. And then the next season we have a great season. Small tweaks. We get Iguodala, who was huge for us. Great presence. They started part luck and part recruiting, part not. But good people in the locker room, good players, people that understood roles, people like myself and Andre, who at a point in our career were like, hey, I'm happy to play a role. Like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, like
Let them
cool.
take over.
Yeah, like I'm not going to worry about, hey, I was 15 and 10 in Milwaukee, I want my touches when you got Steph and Klay on your team, right? So guys like Andre, myself, David Lee, we all bought into that. We drafted well, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, Spencer Zilli, and then, within 3 years we got a championship. When I got there, I was like, no chance. Like,
How much of an influence do you think you were on that team? I know Draymond's come out at one point in time and said how influential you were on his defense in the post. You would take him aside and teach him some things that he probably would never have done before in his career defensively. How influential were you on that team?
Yeah, I think that's your duty as a veteran. Once you're a 7, 8, 9, 10-year guy, your duty is to then help the next generation. And I had a guy named Irvin Johnson, not Magic, Irvin Johnson, the center. They had him on the squad, and he was towards the end of his career. Couldn't really move at that point in his career, but they signed him to mentor me, and he was that for me. He'd sit on the back of the bus. He'd sit behind me on the bus when we're going to the hotels and read me scouting reports about how you're playing this big. He does this. Watch his left shoulder, likes to spin. And then he showed me a lot of things on the court. And coming from college, you can't use your hands in the post. You got to chest up everything. In the NBA, you're allowed to use your hands. So once he taught me that, I was like, this is really useful. I did the same thing to Draymond. I saw Draymond comes into camp and he's trying to chest guys in college. I'm like, you can't do that in the NBA, man. Like, they can spin off you. It's going to put you in the basket. Yeah. So then I said, you can get away with all this. Oh, shit. Like, oh, wow. And now he's an all-league defender. So it's your duty. And I think Draymond's now doing that to the next generation.
Pass it on. He's also
Albeit a little bit more with Jordan Poole, probably a bit more physical than we like. But yeah, no, it's your duty to do that, I think, as a veteran.
And then you guys get Steve Kerr, transform the offense, and then 2015 you beat LeBron in the NBA Finals. What was that like? Like, that's got to be top of the world.
Yeah, crazy. Like I said, because we weren't expected to do it. Like, it's just we were built. We're one of the few teams of the last X amount of years that was built organically, like wasn't
Through the draft.
Yeah, I mean later on they got KD and that was non-organic.
It wasn't a
but-
super team when you won the
Yeah,
championship.
like we were just kind of built up through the draft. We made some trades, myself and Andre. We, a new coach, and just kind of went like that. And then, like we started the season, we had aspirations to obviously go second, third round, because the year before we lost to the Clippers in 7 in the first round. So like if we get to the second round of conference finals, great year. And then we're in a championship series, and we're like, holy shit, we've got a chance to win this thing, and we end up winning it. So really kind of full circle moment, man. Like, and to win a championship, you look at how many players have a championship ring. It's 12 or 15 every year, and generally that team's probably going to win 2 or 3 out of that decade, or it usually goes back to
They
back.
dominate,
or 3.
yeah.
Yeah, so Golden State won 4 in or 3 in 10 years, right? So then you're in an elite group of guys, right? 15 out of 450 players, pretty impressive.
Wow. Hall of Fame worthy stuff.
Probably not.
Oh, they give it out to a lot worse.
Yeah.
They do.
Now, the following season, you guys have the best regular season record.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And you make your way to another NBA Finals. This is the finals where, LeBron James comes back from 3-1 down. But what a lot of people don't look at is what they point the 3-1 loss to was it Draymond being injured?
He got suspended in that game.
So he got
Game
suspended
5.
for the nut shot, right?
yeah.
The kick to the nuts. But you got injured in that
5.
series, in Game 5, which was almost the turning point. If Andrew Bogut plays that series, do you rewrite history?
Look, I think that's a factor. The Draymond thing is a factor. I think our kind of rotation got smacked out of whack. First with Draymond being out, I get hurt in Game 5. Now Festus has to start, hasn't played a lot of minutes. It just threw everything out of whack, and then because it was 3-1, it got to 3-2, they stole momentum, and that's the beauty.
Yeah. They get the Game 6 home game.
Of a seven-game series, that's the beauty of it. It's not over till you get 4 wins, and they stole momentum. You got to give them credit. A lot of things went their way. Should the league suspended Draymond? It's questionable.
Definitely not.
LeBron did stand over him and all that, and it wasn't really. It was kind of a nut shot, but he was getting up off the floor.
Yeah.
Contentious issue there, but you give them credit. They stole the series, but a lot of little things played into that, and I know. I kind of was reading LeBron really well in the paint and kind of somewhat stopping him. I knew when he was turning the corner on perimeter, he was looking for me because he knew I was coming to try to contest and block his shot. And then I noticed with me out of that lineup, he was on the rim.
Well, that's when he started scoring, like averaging 40 points a game.
A lot of his stuff was outside the paint early on in that series and jumpers and threes, and then he was on the rim consistently Game 6 and 7, and that definitely made a difference.
Being injured obviously would have stung. Then losing the series would have killed the team. Then you get traded in the offseason to accommodate Kevin Durant. That obviously would have hurt a lot, but did you kind of think, NBA is a business, I understand the move, or were you pretty dirty about it?
No, I understood. Look, as harsh as it was, I kind of knew, I heard the KD rumblings even before it happened, and I'm like, shit, I'm going to be the odd man out here. It's probably going to be me or Andre for our contracts, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I mean, I would have traded myself for KD. Like, it's Kevin Durant.
Mikal Bridges just said the same thing.
Yeah, you make that move, right? Like and it gave them another 2 championships. But yeah, I mean, I got a pay rise out of it because I ended up getting traded to Dallas, and Texas has no state taxes, so I made another $1.5 million just on the trade.
Not bad.
So it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no sour grapes. I wasn't happy at the time just because not so much of can't believe they traded me. I was like, man, I just left the team's probably going to win another couple of championships to go to Dallas, who's pretty shit.
And then you make your way back to the NBL. I mean, you go to the Cavs briefly, and then you make your way back to Australia. And we'll touch on the NBL and kind of how basketball is in Australia and the state of basketball. But being back in Australia over the last few years, you've kind of solidified yourself as, fairly outspoken on social media. You stand up for what you think is right, and you come out defending a lot of people on certain issues. Last few years, it's been lockdowns, masks, and whatnot. At this point in your life, I think you've said it before. You don't need to come out and do this. You've established yourself. You've made your money. What made you want to come out and really put your views out there online?
I've always been outspoken. I was kind of born and raised to say, if you're asked a question, you answer it to the best of your ability, and you're going to be wrong sometimes, and you live with that. And sometimes I've been wrong, just like anyone, and happy to say that. But I guess with the whole, once this all started, no one knew what was going on, and you're like, 2-week lockdown? Oh, it makes sense. Makes sense. I've never been involved in a pandemic or lived in a pandemic. You're like, 2-week lockdown, cool. and then it was 4 weeks, and then it was a month, and then it was blah, 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 right? So a couple of months into that, you know, I'm living in a nice place, 4-bedroom house, fridge full of food, you know.
Living comfortably.
I'm fine, right? So I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, shit, like, you know, this must be tough for a lot of people. Imagine you're in a 2-bedroom unit with 2 kids. They're not, all of a sudden not at school. You're not at work, or you're trying to do a Zoom meeting with you know, tough, right? And then someone reached out to me through an intermediary to do a pro gov PSA, like, hey, do the right thing. You know, those messages, do the right thing.
Yeah.
I saw plenty of
You
them.
know, stay home. You know, stay safe, stay healthy. Blah blah blah. And I got the brief, and I'm sitting there reading it, and
It's
I'm
like it's like marketing.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing it. I'm getting paid for them, right? And this is a paid thing.
Yeah, you're talking like influencers who have come out,
I saw
athletes.
Hazem Al-Masri did one.
No, but I just saying there was heaps of people, you know, that came out and, you know, did the bidding of the government, say, stay in your homes, do the right thing. We're all in this together type thing. You got offered a sum of money to do the same thing, and then you obviously had a rant about
I was just sitting there thinking like, this is hypocritical for me to do this message, man. I'm sitting in a 4-bedroom house, pool, kids are out swimming, you know, like fridge full of food, like I said, and I'm like, I'm telling like regular Joes, like, hey mate, don't go to work and pay your mortgage, stay at home. Like I was like, nah, fuck that, I'm not doing that. So I didn't do it, and then months later, I decided to put a video out about it, and it blew up, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, and then, oh yeah, you can't prove it, this, that, and this. The offer's smart. It wasn't directly from what I think was the government. It came through an agency, and you don't know exactly where it's coming from. But I know it's from a government in some form,
through a
right?
proxy.
And I just thought it's hypocritical, and I was just like, no, I'm not doing that shit. Because I thought about myself. I'm like, okay, so I'm 12 years old. My father's a mechanic who would have been shut down as non-essential because no one's fucking driving their cars.
Mm-hmm.
How do we put food on the table? How do we, like, I'm locked in, you know, my father was a pretty, you know, this is the line, don't cross it, disciplinarian. And I'm like, now I'm spending, instead of having the freedom to go to school and get away a little bit, he's going to be stressed because he's not making money. I'm going to be stressed because I'm in the house. I'm stressing them out. They're stressing me out as a young kid. And that whole dynamic.
It's not healthy.
You factor in family violence has gone up, what, tenfold, domestic violence, all that. I'm just like,
health.
I'm not promoting this shit. And I said it, and 90% of people were like, that's really good. And then 10% were like, yeah, fuck off, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you probably heard it a lot when you were putting the videos out, but for people that were in that position, thank you.
Yeah,
like,
I
we
wanna say
appreciated
thank you.
when you did say it, because like you said, you didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
And like, hearing someone of your notoriety and your position do that, it's like, okay, well.
And people don't understand, I'm like, I don't need the money, but I'm losing money doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
so
I
it's
mean,
like, I don't care, right?
That's
Like,
why I think people who have a lot of respect for you is that you sympathise with a lot of people that were going through some tough periods during that lockdown period over the last 2 years. But for example, when I first came across your Instagram, it was Nick and I were making content, and you know, this was in the height of lockdown, and Kerry Chant, who's our health minister at the time, says no browsing in shopping centres. When you go grocery shopping, don't browse. Just grab what you need and get out. So we do a little skit where we're going in Coles and we're sprinting through the aisles, throwing shit in the trolleys, right? And I posted to TikTok and Instagram, and it blew up. You know, Craig Kelly reposted it, and then you shared it on your Instagram story, and I was like, mate,
We made it.
an NBA champion just shared me on his Instagram. We were stoked, but and then we came grown more and more to like your stuff because you were calling out a lot of people in power that were being very hypocritical at the time because they're still earning a wage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
no, pay rises.
pay rises
Yeah.
while
Going
everyone's being
out.
told to stay at home and lock down. It's like, oh, it's 2 years ago, forget about it. But like at the end of the day, you know, why we copped a lot of backlash was we went to that first initial lockdown protest, and you know, your dad, you said very hard line. You know, he's a mechanic. Our dad ran a small business. He went to that lockdown protest. We accompanied him. It was right off the back of doing numbers, and we copped a barrage of backlash for being there. You've opened yourself up to a lot of backlash. And like you said, it does come at a cost to you. You lose marketing opportunities, things in media. You've worked with Channel 7 and whatnot. Has it taken a toll on you personally, you know, opening yourself up to a lot of backlash for your views?
The reason why it hasn't is because I can walk down the street with my head high. And what's funny about social media is all the backlash I receive on there, I receive none of it. I've had one run-in with one person in 3 years about my views. One.
No one
In
comes up to you.
One
and says,
person. And for the most part, it's all, we really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for being a voice for us. And that means more to me than all other shit. Like the social media stuff, it's one person with 100 accounts, and times that by 10, and then you feel like you're getting, you know, you're getting cancelled online. You're not. It's a load of shit. So I judge it upon the public. When I'm out in the public, and I welcome that. If you want to come and say, hey, I don't appreciate what you, I'll debate you, man, like nicely. But if you come up and abuse me, and that's the thing on socials, like people are like, you should take the higher road, Bogut. And I'm like, well, if you're going to abuse me, I'm going to go back at you. As simple as that.
I mean, in person, they're probably like looking up like that.
No one-
Yeah, that's what people
anyway.
say, but I'll have a debate, like
Yeah.
civilly. Like if you're like, hey man, I didn't appreciate your views, we're trying to stay safe, and I was like, stay safe, and then I'll talk about, you know, what about the people that committed suicide, domestic violence, you know,
Yeah.
people were in predatory homes now, even more, like all that kind of stuff wasn't factored in, right? So that's what it doesn't bother me that much. You feel like online sometimes it can be like, oh, I'm getting pummeled here, but I don't believe in all that shit, man. Like I judge it upon the general public and the perception. And people coming up to me, like, there's people that don't even know I play basketball, right? You're that guy that spoke
Yeah,
out, right?
it's
I had
crazy.
people like, went to a butcher one day and it's like, this bloke who's like a full locker, man, like labourer, like, hey mate, I saw your video on TikTok. Good on you, man. And he had no idea who the fuck I was, like, other than that video,
Didn't
right?
know you were NBA
And I'm
champion.
like, I'm not doing that. Like, people say, oh, you're doing it for clout or fame. For what? Like,
No.
I don't need money. I don't need clout. I don't need fame. I do like to push buttons a little bit about certain topics and engage conversation, right or wrong, but no one was doing it. Like, yeah, I know there was people, because I sat in back rooms when I was doing the Olympic telecast. I sat in back rooms.
Yeah.
It was all bullshit. It was all in the back rooms. There was no masks.
for
There was
show.
none of that bullshit. As soon as we walk on air, it's like X's on the floor. Let's sit 5, you know, what is it, a 1.5 apart.
Let's
all that
do our
shit.
choreographed
I'm like,
dance on camera.
You unknowingly, like, you guys are knowingly not doing this behind closed doors as soon as the camera's off. Like, how can you live with yourself? It's
Yeah.
hypocritical. You know, like, I just couldn't live with myself doing that and called it out.
Well, I also want to touch on that, you know, has it affected any of your relationships with people? Because I know for the most part, like we've had the opportunity or like a network has reached out to maybe possibly do some work. And then when it gets tossed around the marketing teams or whatnot, it's like, oh no, quick Google search, those are the COVID guys. You know, like I'm talking like Australian networks. Have you ever, because you've worked in the media, you know, whether it's free to air TV, online, has it affected any your business dealings? Because you're kind of established now as, you know, with startups and other business ventures. Has it affected you in that way?
100% lost deals. Yeah, man. Like lost deals for certain marketing things. Like I was in negotiations with some people for different things that will then also needed government funding, and then all of a sudden it went quiet because they've probably gone to the HRs and been like, hey, you want to get that guy funding if he's involved. I'm like, but it doesn't. I'd rather hold my head up high, knowing that I stood by my morals and what I thought was right. And
you don't want to sell out.
Yeah, the rest of it's like I'm not gonna. I never was. You know, I remember like when I was in the NBA, right? There was a commercial on NBA TV and ESPN. It was with Wanda Sykes. You wouldn't have seen it here because it was US, and it was around.
Funny, I like Wanda. She's
It was
funny.
around. You know, there was a big push about don't use the word gay as a slight. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and fair enough, totally get it. But the commercial, they said the word like 500 times, right? And then the problem with NBA TV is there's only a small number of commercials. So it was on every
5
damn
minutes.
commercial.
Like the
So
ESPN commercials, they keep,
yeah, so I was
keep
like,
recycling.
so I just posted one day. I said, man, this commercial is starting to really get annoying, man. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Got a call from the NBA, and they're like, hey, Andrew, like, we saw your tweet. You know, like, why would you do that? I'm like, because the commercial's annoying. I don't care about what
You
it's pushing.
didn't have got the message.
Yeah,
You
it
said
could be
it's
about
annoying.
anything. Could
Yeah.
be about Coca-Cola. It's annoying. It's really annoying. I have to mute my TV when it comes on. I'm sick of it. And well, you know, your brand would be nothing without the NBA. They started leaning on me like that. Like,
Jeez,
you know,
that's
you need
insulting.
you need to toe the line, motherfucker. Like, and I was just like, I said, yeah, with all due respect, I don't care. Like,
Well, they asked you to take
my
the
view.
tweet down,
No, they
or-
asked to take it down. They were just trying to relay like, you need to listen to us because you'd be nothing without us. And that was early in my career, and I was just like, cool. Like, where do we go from here? You know, and I moved on. But to that point, it was like I've always kind of had my views, right or wrong. And it's not normal for an athlete to have that, right? So you get the shut up and dribble shit. You get people like, oh, you're just an athlete, shut up. It's like, well, why? Like, I've got to.
You're still a person.
I'm a known
outside
person.
of basketball.
I think I've got somewhat of an influence and can get to people. I think my upbringing is, you know, somewhat is for the people because I grew up as a migrant. I grew up being called a wog. I grew up with all that stuff. So I think I'm pretty attuned to comment on that. I've lived on 3 different continents. I've lived all over the world, experienced different cultures in different cities. I've lived amongst Mormons. I've lived amongst blue collar people in Milwaukee. I've lived upon like, you know,
LA.
some extreme viewers in San Francisco and LA.
Yeah.
So I've experienced everything, and I think I have pretty good worldviews to comment on things. And
100%.
people don't like it, too bad.
Well, on that topic, politics in sports, it's everywhere now. Whether it's taking a knee for an anthem, pride jerseys or pride rounds, as I run in with the NBL last season. Do you think there needs to be some form of separation with, let's just focus on the sport and keep politics out of the game?
I do, yeah. And I say that as an owner of Sydney Kings. I'm in the minority, unfortunately, but I think that sport was a time where you could disconnect from the world, right? So like whatever's going on, natural disasters, political stuff, wars, you could like tune into that 2 or 3 hours and lose yourself into
It's
it.
an escape.
You lose
Yeah.
yourself, and you could just, now you're like every hour, every
Everywhere,
quarter time,
whether it's-
hey, this cause, that cause. It's like where are we going here? And then you're dividing people like with all this stuff, and it's pushed by government. It's sport washing to a T. This isn't.
I think it's governments and corporations.
Yeah, no,
sponsors.
It starts with government, and government's pushing corporations, and government's pushing sporting teams. So if you go to the government for a grant and you want this and you want that, have you promoted this? You need to promote this. Oh, no
Total
worries.
line.
And then
Yeah.
it's scratch my back. You know, I'll scratch yours, and I just don't think it's good because you should be going to enjoy sport. Now, if athletes want to promote causes in their own time, I've got no problem with it. This is where I'm different to most people. If they want to go and promote a cause,
Well,
take
like,
a knee.
like you do yourself though,
Correct.
off
yeah,
the court.
but don't do it during that league's time, and that's where I think the league's got lost. Like, whatever cause you're pushing, there's going to be people in that league that are against that cause. But where we've got to now is they're too scared to say anything because of the backlash, right? Like, there's people that don't agree with the rainbow stuff, right? Like the full push of it. Like, my position on it is, I don't care what you do as an adult, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you want to go and what you do in your bedroom, I don't give a shit. Go and do it. Have
That's your
fun,
life.
enjoy yourself. I don't think you should be then barred from a cafe or restaurant. And I think in Australia, as far as I know, I think we're pretty progressive with that. Like, people aren't being discriminated against because of their sexuality. But you want me to be in your bedroom with pom-poms cheering on what you're doing and celebrating it? Got a problem with that,
Yeah.
right? And I draw the line at kids. Like, leave the fucking kids alone, man. Like, kids are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They don't need to be seeing and hearing about this stuff. They'll figure it out along the adolescence and teenage years. But that's where I draw the line. And people are like, oh, so you're against the rainbow? No, I'm not against the rainbows. I'm just against, like, I'm not cheering what you do in the bedroom, brother. Like,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be cheering what I do. It's my business and your business, right? And that's where I think we've got lost.
That's one thing you've called out recently. There was that mural in the city in Sydney. There's videos that you post online about, you call it out when it's targeted towards kids. But now there's this thing with cancel culture in Australia, and it's worldwide. You know, Spanian, for example.
Well, he's been railed the last week.
He's been absolutely copping it in the media because he put out a video saying, he's saying
He doesn't agree with what's going on in
especially
the
in
city.
relation to kids and how it's been shown to kids, and straight away, people dropping him. His management drops him.
Label, yeah.
Book deal that he had a book deal with, said they'll never publish another book with him, and it's just straight away, it's either conform or not.
Exactly.
And like you said, you don't want to be cheering other people on in their bedroom, but more so, there's other people that have different views.
Yeah.
And if you're preaching tolerance,
That's the thing.
you got to be tolerant of everyone's views.
Inclusion. The inclusion, it's just.
Do you think
it's a
cancel
misnomer.
culture? Do you think cancel culture is going too far? Okay, after the last 2 years, you can be cancelled for a lockdown, I think, but now it just seems to be like it just keeps getting worse and worse. And
100%.
Where's the next goalpost being
Well,
moved?
yeah, you can't have an opinion, and like I said, opinions are. You want people to have opinions and have debate.
Discussion.
My whole thing was even during the lockdowns was like, let's have a pro lockdown, doctor, scientist, whatever, and a anti-lockdown, and let's have that debate. Let's have a pro mandate. Let's have it on mainstream. We saw none of that. It was all one-sided.
Zero.
It's the same thing with
We had
this.
Lisa
It's like,
Wilkinson telling us stay inside.
exactly,
and
but
please
it's
put
the
us in lockdown.
conforming that I don't like. My family fled communism. Like, this is, and people say, oh, it's like extreme. No, it starts slowly, man. It starts slowly with this kind of shit, and that's exact way things happen in the 60s, 70s, 80s in the former Yugoslavia, right? It
Ignorance of
It
history.
happens slowly, and people are like, oh, it's just a little bit. Oh, it's just a little bit, and then here you are, 5 kilometre radius, can't leave your house. So with all that stuff, it's live and let live. I've got no problem with that. Just leave the kids out of it, and it's almost like not just conforming. We want you to conform. No, you have to also celebrate what I'm doing, or you're a bigot.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Like, you do what you want to do. I'm not stopping you. I'm not protesting what you do. But because I'm not actually celebrating and saying, oh, wow, that's great. You're so brave and stunning. Like, I'm now still labeled. Like, that's wrong. And I think people are There's the last couple of weeks with some of this stuff, people are starting to voice, and until adults, especially with the kids stuff, until adults use their voice, this shit's going to continue. And I've got mothers, so many mothers have come up to me the last week, man. You wouldn't believe it. Mothers that are like, thank you for your message about the, all these different genders and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important. Mothers are afraid for their children. Like,
why do you think people are scared to voice their opinion? Is it because they're scared of being viewed, or being cancelled of public backlash? Because like you said, you probably get a lot of messages from people, but they won't publicly come out and say it, because if there were more people sharing their view, maybe governments wouldn't be so overreaching, or people wouldn't be pushing certain agendas.
Yes, there's a lot of people that reach out and say, I'd love to share it, but I can't because of my job, or they'll subtly like it but won't repost it, so which is fine. I get it, but a lot of people, one thing I've noticed is a lot of businesses in Australia rely on government in some form. A lot, even small businesses. There's some sort of grant, or there's a deal with a government contract, or there's this or that. That plays a huge part and is severely unspoken about, right? Like, so I get why people are afraid, but with some of this stuff, like the kids stuff, I draw the line on it, and that doesn't stop until we all say, no, that's bullshit. Like, we're not doing that. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Call me whatever name you want, but I don't accept having drag queens read to 6-year-olds, right?
Or dancing in front of them in the library.
With G-strings and whatever. Like, I would say that whether it was a 10 out of 10 hot female, like 6-year-olds, man. Like,
keep them innocent.
Yeah, what are you doing? Like, it's not a thing about anti a certain group. It's like, hey, like, sexuality stuff, that was grooming once upon a time. It was called grooming, right? It was normalizing sexual behavior to young children to, this is normal. Oh, yeah.
How do you think kind of society's transformed then? So, like, that was considered grossly wrong maybe 10, 15 years ago, but now it's considered something you have to celebrate or think's normal. How did society shift that quickly?
Good question. Because it's slowly happened over time.
Yeah.
It's slowly happened, and now we're here, and now, the unfortunate reality is eventually a pendulum's going to swing the other way, which is going to go extreme the other way, where it's going to be like, probably too extreme. You don't want that neither. So you want a balance. Like I said, live and let live. Just stop all in your face shit about whatever cause it is. That's what kills me. It's like, live and let live and get on with life.
You shared a news.com article recently, okay? That was, here are the 10 biggest myths of COVID that were proven a lie over the last 2 years. And these were things like, so they've come out and said, this was now being heavily researched, and things that we were told to do during lockdowns or COVID are now a lie. These are things like mask wearing, lockdowns, boosters.
Natural immunity.
Right. You've come out and said, where are the people calling me conspiracy theorists now?
Yeah.
Do you feel vindicated in a way? Or do you think people are now saying, oh no, it was such a confusing time, let's everyone just move on? Or do you feel like, you were right in some aspect?
I think it's just people are never going to admit they were wrong. And because this was such a long process and such a tough time for people with lockdowns, people that drank the Kool-Aid are never going to say, I drank the Kool-Aid and was wrong. There's so many people still holding on to this day, like, oh, no. And I mean, like I said, you do what you want to do. I was strongly against, like, as soon as you start mandating stuff and telling people you have to do this to work, like, it's just wrong. But
do you think governments need to come out and acknowledge that
they won't?
They didn't know what they were doing?
Well, the excuse will be what you just said. Oh, with the current, what we had at that time, this was the best available option. We didn't know any better. It's like, we're 3 years in and Victoria's still pushing boosters, like, as of yesterday, right? Like, it's still, get your 5th booster, it's like an iPhone.
Even after this article's come out.
Exactly. So you're like, hang on a second. Then other people, you've got your standard people that outrage, online. They're like, oh, it's news.com.au, they're Murdoch media scum, it's all, misinformation. I'm like, hang on a second. Like, this same news.com.au was promoting lockdowns and mandates and that you should lose your job and you have to wear a mask when you just go take a shit by yourself. They were pushing that for 2 straight years. So how now they're not? Like, I think people are realizing that, there was a lot of wrong in that, and I don't buy. I mean, people will say to us, like, stop talking about it, it's 2 years ago. Yeah, I get that to an extent. Like, we need to start moving on. But we also need to hold people accountable for what happened, right? And
because
we need to
people's lives are affected.
And make sure that in 5 years there's another whatever, possible pandemic or we don't follow this same suit. We've got to learn from the past. That's history, right? And okay, if you say mistakes were made, we didn't know any better, now you do. So when the next one happens, I think we're going to go the same route, personally, if this ever happens again. Because
all the infrastructure's there in place to do it all again. You want to check in somewhere, hey, we've got an app, do it straight away. But look, I honestly wouldn't be surprised either. But you voiced your opinions across social media. You're on Instagram, Twitter. What do you what do you prefer using the most? Because they're different mediums, tweets and Instagram posts. Do you prefer Twitter?
I prefer Twitter just because like I like engaging, I like reading more. I'm not so much of the drool over Instagram of I think it's more of a what other people have kind of feel. Like, hey, look at my nice watch, or hey, look at this. And I started the Instagram. I never was on Instagram. I did it mainly for the podcast because I understand the clips are easy to put on there and all that. So I'm a bit more involved there. But and then Twitter, since Elon's involved, has been much better. Instagram heavily throttled my account.
It's massively shadow banned. I don't know, like even just writing your name in the search, you have to spell your name like exactly correct, or however your username is, for it to come up. It doesn't come up as a suggested. Your followers stay stagnated. Like
they go up and down by 100. They go up 100. As soon as they go up 100, it goes down. People call, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. No one wants to follow you because you're a dickhead. Like, all right, man. Like, it's clear. Like, you click follow. It says this. Are you sure you want to follow this guy? He's posted misinformation. I'm like, and the one misinformation thing that I posted that they flagged me for was from the government fucking website that I screenshot.
Have you ever tried to clear it up with anyone at Meta or Instagram as to why that like?
No, I went on a rage kind of Instagram post when that happened because I literally posted screenshots from a government about kind of their gender policy with young kids in school that I disagreed with, about how they don't have to tell the parents if they're 12-year-olds transitioning, they don't have to tell the parents and all that kind of stuff. And I posted the screenshots, and it was the misinformation thing came up, and they blocked the post. And it was RMIT fact check. Oh, RMIT, let me Google this. Found like all the people that do the RMIT fact checking and just started posting their photos on my Insta saying, this is someone who said I posted misinformation. They all would be drinking out of the same Kool-Aid with the same views and same word views. So I started just going one by one at every one of them, and the comments were going crazy. And then I emailed RMIT and said, can you please point me to what was misinformation on this? Because I had some advice from a friend to get it all in writing, because I could have a potential court case. And they wrote back literally within a day and said, oh, sorry, our automated fact check picked it up as misinformation, but it's not. We'll repost it.
You've been shadow banned since then.
Yeah, I've been shadow banned since then as posting misinformation still. So I'm just like, well, you've indicated that it wasn't misinformation. Why am I still?
Well, there are instances though where you have been kind of like targeted. There was that electoral commission letter that you received for you to stop posting, or they were taking down certain posts. Was that ever resolved, that issue with you being kind of called out over putting information out?
I posted a video that was in Victoria that had a certain hymn that went with their coronavirus PSAs, like keep yourself safe, all that kind of shit. So then a friend of mine posted a video with all the corruption stuff that had been involved in Victoria using the same hymn. It was pretty clever, with the same logos and all that kind of shit. So all I did was post it, right? Get a letter from the VEC saying you breached your electoral commission rules. You haven't posted, at the end of a political thing, you got to say, brought to you by blah, 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 this address. It doesn't have that on it. But it actually had a link that took you to that. But it wasn't for a political party. It was just a video, right? It wasn't promoting a Liberal Labour.
Just comedy.
It was, and it was pointing, a spoof pointing out the corruption.
Yeah.
So I'm like, number one, I'm not a politician. Like, I'm not registered as a politician. I'm not pushing it. I specifically have never pushed a political party. There's ones I like better than others, but I purposely don't jump all in with a political party, because I know there's every political party on earth, there's things I like and things I don't, right? So I've always been cognizant of not jumping in. And got this letter, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I was like, I'm just going to post it online, and it blew up. The media hit them up like, well, he's not above the rules. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a politician. And it didn't breach your guidelines. It links to a statement of, blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of very, very interesting. So I know, a lot of activists and a lot of people that are anti my views were heavily reporting, posts I put out. And that was just one of the interesting ones. So once I posted that online, never heard from them again. And they said they threatened to fine if I do it again and this and that. So I actually went back and found the post and reposted it on purpose, like retweeted it and reposted it. I'm like, go for your life. I dare you. Like, it's ridiculous, man. Like,
how does it feel now, though, like posting on Twitter or posting on Instagram, tweeting on Twitter? Do you know now that every time you do something, it's going to be a news article? And like, what's it like having that kind of power?
Well, the other day you put up a thing where you were registering your child for sport, and it had all these options of what the 6-year-old's gender could be, and you're like, can we just keep this shit out of sport, or like can we keep this away from kids? Anyway, straight away, Daily Mail or News.com article. Triggered Andrew Bogut.
Triggered.
So anything that you post is going to get, clicks or traction or open a backlash. Yeah, what's that feeling like?
I didn't think that would blow up the way it did. I just posted it because I thought it was ridiculous. I'm like, it's a 6-year-old kid. Oh, but the developers just have one side. It's a cache. It's for everyone.
It's just a drop-down box.
Bullshit.
It's harder to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to call it out. And then my wife actually sent it to me. My wife screenshot and goes, look at this shit. And what's funny is the soccer only has 2 gendered leagues.
Female teams.
So why all the... So you can only sign up. You can only play with the boys or the girls.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's all this? So anyway, activists got, you know, hope your kids don't end up, being confused about their gender. Like a lot of kids, you read the studies, go through those issues as children. Like I'll say this on record. Like I was with my mum 24/7 because my father worked. I saw her putting on high heels. I put on high heels as a 5-year-old. I saw her in the makeup mirror. I had lipstick all over my face one day because I was trying to follow mum, right? Today, they'd be like, oh no, Andrew wants to be Andrea. Like, come on, at 5, 6 years old? Like, you know what I mean? So a lot of children go through gender dysphoria, but it generally works itself out. That's what all the studies say.
That's why you leave them till they're adults to make a decision.
Exactly right. And that's my thing. It's like, and now you're seeing, children go through sex changes at 12, 13, 14, 15, and then having huge regrets later on in their life. Not only that, you're on the teat of Big Pharma the rest of your life.
It leads to more mental health issues down the line.
But you're on the teat to Big Pharma the rest of your life. So if you need hormone blockers, you need those. If you need hormones because you're transitioning the other way, you need those. So it is a money thing as well. And I just don't understand the push for kids to do it. Like I said, if you're an adult, you want to change genders, by all means.
It's your life.
No problem. Children, I've got a big issue with it.
You've spoken about, you purposely don't choose a side. And like when we make content, we're not going at one side of politics. Everyone's fair game. I think there's just as bad people on either side, or
100%.
sometimes they're serving the same agendas.
Yep.
Right? But you've kind of been featured on Sky News and for comment and whatnot. Do you ever envision yourself maybe having a run in politics? Because I feel like a lot of people do resonate with you, and you do sympathise with a lot of everyday people like ourselves and like our parents. Do you ever see yourself getting into the politics game?
No, never. I've been approached, obviously. I wouldn't do it just because I got, a family, and I don't think I'd last. I think I'd be a week in. I wouldn't, the handlers that would try to say, oh, you can't do this, I'd be like, man, get away from me, dude. Like, this is bullshit, I'm calling it out. And I would call it as I see it, whether it worked or not. I don't know how the public would take that in. Some would like it, some wouldn't. But that's why I wouldn't survive. I don't need the money or the pension of being a politician. I don't need all that. And yes, there is the argument of like, well, people like that should get involved. But with how crazy people are in the world today, it's just not worth it. You'd be putting in, much more than you're getting out. And I just wouldn't be interested.
Well, you can achieve, changing people's opinions just by what you're doing.
Well, that's my thing. It's like, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call out politicians and put pressure on them when they're doing stupid things. And to your point about, I am featured on Sky News. I go on there every couple of weeks, and people say, "Oh, it's a right-wing network." I'm like, well, if ABC calls me tomorrow and wants me on and wants to do a deal with me to have me on, happy to go. I'm happy to talk to anyone. This is the thing.
Yeah. There should be open discourse.
And some of my views are more liked by people on the right. I get that.
Yeah.
But there are things that I like from the left. There are things that I'm balanced. Like, I take every issue individually. I'm not just like, oh, I'm this side of politics, so what does that tell me? I need to be, okay, I hate that now. Like, you're an idiot if you do that.
Don't box me into it.
And that's most people politically, unfortunately. I voted this way my whole life, or my father did, or my grandpa, so I'm going to keep doing that. No, read the issues. Read the issues.
Especially in the States. And that's where, like, you've been in the States. What's it like, obviously, society-wise and politically? Is it the same as Australia, or is Australia just following America?
What's the main difference?
We're 3 or 4 years behind America with everything. Like, everything that's happening over there is slowly coming here, and then here's even worse because we're more tabloidy with our media. But that's a disappointing thing here. I think we just follow suit with everything going on over there, and I just hate the fact that, like, you might have a view on, hey, I'm not for mandates for vaccination, right? And someone will be like, oh, right wing. You're like, what? Or, I think everyone should get vaccinated because it's better. Oh, left wing. Like, it's like, what the
Well, that's why when Karl Stefanovic said, I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago, that he's like, oh, I don't think...
He said, I'm not getting another booster. Yeah. If he said that, 2 years ago, the guy's a right-wing extremist conspiracy
Exactly.
theorist.
And you look at Joe Rogan. Like, Joe Rogan's got, like, he's left-leaning, in my opinion. Hours and hours of podcasts, like, infinite numbers. And then he had the whole thing about I'm not going to get the vax because I think I'm in the prime of my life health-wise, and horse dewormer and all that kind of stuff. And now he's a right winger, and you're like, have you listened to like the hundreds of hours that he's spoken about?
He's so liberal.
Yeah, he's more there. He's more like trying to help the poor and try to give extra benefits and all that. He's not kind of a pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. He's more that side, which is fine. I agree with some of what he says, but he's been labelled as right wing. You're just like, what the hell is going on? It's like if you don't back to our conversation about conforming.
Yeah.
If you don't conform to party lines, it's 1984 George Orwell all over again. I encourage everyone to read that book. This is exactly the. If you're not all for the cause, then you're on the other side.
It's frightening how much of that book is kind of come to life. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
you kind of come from a position where, and I touched on it earlier, you've kind of established yourself. You kind of have the ability to call certain things out. What would you say to people that don't have that ability, or have a platform to kind of say or talk about things that are uncomfortable? Because like you said, it might affect their job. It might affect their ability to put food on the table for their kids. What would you say to them and what they should do in this kind of like politically correct climate?
I mean, there's ways to do it without putting yourself out there, like support people or causes, either financially or share it amongst your friends or that kind of stuff. But I mean, look, I'm lucky because I was at the tail end of my career when this happened. If I was in the prime, I can't be a hypocrite. Who knows what I would have done? Maybe I wouldn't be as vocal. I don't think so. I think I would have been vocal still and would have got calls from like our media person, whichever club I'm with, or the league, like shut the fuck up, just let it roll. But that's a hard one. I mean, I think for people with kids, you need to look at your kids and decide what world do you want your kids to grow up in. What world do you want them to become teenagers and adults in? And for me, it's not the world we live in right now. Like the way it's going, I don't want my children growing up in this kind of environment. And there's a lot of positives too. Like there's a lot of good things going on. We're starting to eradicate poverty for the most part pre-pandemic. The poverty numbers worldwide will continue to go down, and now they're going back up. But I think it's that mentality of like, okay, my check that's $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year. Can I find another job that's a little bit less for the betterment of my kids? I think that's kind of the mentality people have to have. Like, is that extra $20K for your kids' detriment worth it at the end of the day? And that's easier said than done. Like I said, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm not in that position. So I know a lot of people have gone through things where they're like, shit, this is all I know. But that's kind of the message I have.
Now, looking to the NBL, you're a part owner of the Sydney Kings. Big announcement the other day was that you guys got a government grant to have, I know we're talking about government grants now, you might have to toe the line.
Yeah, they're great.
That there's going to be a institute,
Centre of Excellence.
Centre of Excellence that the Sydney Kings is going to be a part of. What does that mean for basketball in Australia?
It's massive. It's massive, and I said it was the first. It's history for NBL, and a lot of people are like, well, our club has this is ours, 24/7. We dictate who comes in and out. It's our facility for what we want to do. A lot of different facilities in the NBL, some have them, but they're still open to public. There's still times that you can't use it. There's still, this is ours, lock and key, 24/7, and it's just an amazing thing to have. For where we've gone, the Sydney Kings went under, 15 odd years ago. They were gone. They went bankrupt, right? To where we are now, won some championships, rebuilding the club from the ground up, and getting this is amazing. We're out at Auburn right now as our facility, and it's not, it needs some work. We're very thankful for them allowing us to get in there in the first place, but it needs some work. And so
you're talking to Auburn Basketball Division 2.
So you know all about it, right? Yeah, you know all about it. So, and ladies there have been pretty good to us for the most part, but it needs work. The toilets are really bad. The showers are bad. So, and the government, our majority owner Paul Smith, credit team, has a great relationship with Don Perrottet, and Perrottet is a huge basketball fan. His daughters are involved. He's come to a bunch of Kings games, and that's been in the negotiations for the best part of 3 years, and we finally got it done a couple of days ago, and that's just going to set the example, not for the Kings. The Flames, Sydney Flames, are also in that group. We can have academies running through there eventually as a plan. We can have, hey, this is Sydney basketball, and Sydney's, it's tough for basketball. There's not a whole lot of funding that's gone to basketball from the government. It generally goes to rugby league for the most part.
Yeah.
We get the crumbs, and if we even get that, so to actually have a big project funded by the government is huge.
You're credited with kind of resurrecting the Kings. I think they went under like 2008, 2009, whatever it was. And since you kind of came back from the NBA and played for them, they've won a couple championships now.
won
All won.
and in the series.
And you got MVP also.
Yeah, we had a runners-up when I played during the COVID year, which got cancelled. We were down 2-1, but it got cancelled. So they gave the chip to Perth, and then championship last year, and then we're in the series this season. So I wouldn't take all the credit. Like Paul Smith's done, he's the man on the ground here, 24/7. That's meeting and greeting, and kissing babies. He's done a fantastic job. The Denholm family has just come on board. So Robin Denholm's global chair of Tesla, so the number one to Elon. Basically, like random, but like a cold message to Paul Smith about the Sydney Kings one day, and Paul's like, "Is this a fake account? Someone's fucking with me." And it was Robin, and we met with them, and they came on and invested, for 40% of the club. So we got some really smart people in our Paul Kind, who does our marketing stuff, Paul Smith, myself. Luke Longley's now going to get a piece of ownership because he's done a great job with an advisory role. We've gifted him some ownership, and we just have a group of eclectic people that are all different, all think differently. I handle things different to Paul. Luke's more Hussar, kind of yoga-ish, and then the Denholm family are very strategic and business orientated. So we have this like melting pot of different personalities, and that's what you want. You don't have if you have a board. Some business advice: if you ever run a company, you have a board meeting and everyone agrees, your business is going to be in some trouble eventually. You want people that are like, nah, like I disagree with that, and actually go at each other like adults. You don't hold it personally post the meeting, but you're like, I disagree with that for these reasons. You want that, and we had those discussions. Had one yesterday for 3 hours, and they're great. They're awesome.
Because you've jumped into business. You also invest in Guzman Gomez.
Oh, best. Shout out to Goose.
Goat feed.
Love it.
Yeah, and also a startup where you're developing like children's uniforms in their local sporting teams.
Yeah.
How do you jump in? Do you see it as like a thing that you get into after you retire from basketball, or is it something that you were going to focus on during your career? Is in starting to venture into businesses?
Yeah, when I first started playing in the NBA, I kind of was all basketball and kind of I don't want to deal with that. Had an agent, had a financial advisor. You do all that shit. I'm just focusing on basketball, and then we'd always have like a players' union and meetings. Like, you guys should always go speak to the people courtside because they're generally billionaires, like network. And I can't be fucked with that. You're young and stupid. You think you know everything. And then later, mid-career, I was like, nah, I need to start. Like, I've got access to some great people. I've got access to meet the world's best at this and the world's best at that. And they're fans of myself or the team, right? Like, they're coming to watch us and spend their money.
Golden State, yeah.
And Golden State was like
Silicon Valley.
So I ended up meeting a few people. And funnily enough, because of my love for poker, I ended up getting into a game with who are now a lot of my good friends in Silicon Valley. I go to this game, so David Lee was already playing in it.
I've seen the Phil Hellmuth shout-outs to the Kings.
Yes, exactly. So I'm
greats.
good friends with Phil Hellmuth. I've actually gotten a bunch of different investments with him as well. But David Lee's like, there's this poker game I'm playing. It's pretty good. It's pretty high stakes. Like, do you want to come along? I'm like, fucking done. Like, yeah, I'd love to come along. And I go to this game and sit down, and it's like the head CEO of one of the biggest startups in the world, and then biggest fund in the world, biggest capital fund, biggest VC legend, retired VC. I'm just like, holy fuck. So I started like picking their brains on stuff. Like, and one of the guys, shout out to Bill Lee, he kind of mentored me, took me aside and was like, if you really want to get involved, I'll help you out. And I started asking questions about what should I look for in a startup, funds, this and that. Should I look in this? He flicks me stuff sometimes, and it all just kind of snowballed from there. So they piggybacked me into some of their deals early when I didn't really know the run of the room. And now I've had the confidence to go and invest in some startups myself. Some have done well and some haven't. That's part of the game. But I'm really intrigued with. I'm an ideas man. I love cool ideas. Like, I love like people pitching me like, this is my idea, and seeing how passionate they are. Yeah. And being like, cool, I'll flick you $100K to, for 5% or whatever like that, and help your company. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, that's a message. Start playing poker with some big wigs. The funniest thing was we're banned from the Star Casino in Sydney. We've made a couple of videos in there.
Oh, they banned you?
When I get the chance to go to Crown in Melbourne, I'm playing 1-3 Texas Hold'em. I put a story up. I'm finally allowed back in casino to play poker. I get a message from Andrew Bogut. Is that 1-3? Is that what's that? I was like, he knows. He's a poker player. No, that's awesome.
I was playing last night actually.
Were you?
Yeah, Star.
We got. I'll give you go heads up.
PLO. Yeah, I play PLO though more.
Oh, do you?
I'm a PLO guy. I used to be Hold'em.
I'm more a Texas guy.
Do you know how to play PLO?
No.
Once you learn
is that
how
the
to
5 card?
4. Once you learn how to play PLO properly, you're done.
Change the game.
I don't leave Hold'em out the window. Don't want to play it.
Okay.
It's too boring because with 4 cards, you're in every hand almost, right? So yeah, I love it. It's good fun.
I want to finish off with some quick fire questions. We call this fill in the blanks. We do this with every guest. I just want to get your answers on these basketball-related questions. Okay. Blank will win the NBA championship this year.
Oh my God, it's a tough one.
Open.
It's so open this season, man. Like the East is open. I'm going to go with Boston.
Boston?
I think Boston. I think whoever comes out of the East will win. I think Boston or Milwaukee.
Blank will be the MVP this season.
Nikola Jokic will be the MVP.
3 in a row.
Has to be. Like, Perkins knocking him for stat padding.
No defense.
I'll give you a good stat. Whenever I don't know what the number is, exact number. When Jokic has a triple-double, I think they're 24-0.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I've seen that one.
Wow. 20, might be 25-0 now. I could be wrong, but it's something in 0 in the 20s. This isn't Westbrook stat padding when his teams were 11-11 with his triple-doubles. They win games when he gets triple-doubles. That's not stat
And they're
padding.
the number 1 seed, so you can't really knock
So
that
I
either.
I think as much as people hate it, I think he deserves it, definitely. I mean, and just his numbers are just crazy.
He's elevated his game. It's warranted.
Triple-double and shooting, I think he's still at high 50s, low 60% from the field. Just insane.
The only knock is the no defense, or he's not
Not
as
great.
good
He's gotten
defensively.
better as a positional defender, but he's just not athletic. Like it's like you saw in the All-Star game. He even said like I'm not designed for this. I shouldn't be in this game. This is not for me. Like
Everyone after the All-Star game jumped straight into the GOAT debate. LeBron never, doesn't participate in the dunk contest. Blank is the greatest of all time.
I'll prerequisite this by saying I'm biased because I'm probably same as you. I was an 80s baby, so 90s was pinnacle of basketball, and it was MJ in the Gatorade commercial. So I'm MJ, but LeBron's definitely in the It's
1 and 2.
It's
and
1
that's
and
it.
2. Yeah, it's 1 and 2, and I think LeBron passing that scoring record helped. But one of my friends is a really big MJ guy, and he's like, yeah, Jordan went 3 years college. So he lost 2 years there, then he retired mid his career. He would have been close to that if that was his goal. I'm like, it's a fair point.
It is, no, it's a very
But
fair
LeBron
point.
still got it, right? And it's a high scoring game today. You don't have Charles Oakley clotheslining you in the 90s, so it's a little bit different, but you can't take away. I'm not a huge LeBron fan, but I respect that what he's done. And not only with the points, his assists and rebounds numbers are going to be top 10 all time as well when he's done.
You were at the Cavs for like a day.
Yeah.
Did you get to like
Rub shoulders with
A
LeBron.
little bit, but not really. That was crazy. I had one training session the morning of the game and then broke my leg. So,
Shit.
yeah, we had a little back and forth and at practice and said hello, and that was about it.
Wow. And you've played with some of the best to ever do it. Blank has been your favourite teammate.
As far as personality, there's been a bunch. I love Klay Thompson just because he's like
super chill.
And he's himself, man. Like he's like one of those guys that just like I still remember we got in the Olympic Village in 2016 in Rio, right? And the US never stay in the village because they will get hounded for the most part, but they stay on a ship usually for security reasons and whatever on the local port in whatever city we're at.
Some luxury cruise or
Yeah,
something.
luxury cruise liner, right? And them and the girls' team stay together. They said they hated it. Like most of the guys hated it because they're just like, we're just isolated. We don't feel like we're in the Olympics, right? So we get off the bus one day from practice, and I like see Klay walking by himself in the village, by himself, headphones on, full Team USA kit. So I walk up to him and I said, Klay, what are you doing, man? He goes, oh, Bogues, how you going, man? I said, what are you doing? He goes, just want to come to the village. I was bored, so I just came to the village. He's that type of guy. Like he'll see a bird, and he'll just follow that bird and get lost, and then be like, oh shit, where am I? I'll figure it out. So anyway, he comes. He's like, where you guys going? I said, we're just going back to our team apartment, team headquarters. He goes, can I come with you? And we're playing him in a couple of days. And I'm like, sure, because he knows a couple of the teammates, Brock Modem, a few other guys he played with at the University of Washington State. So he comes up to our apartment. He's sitting on the couch. Half the guys are walking in like what's this dude doing? Just shooting the shit like normal. So I'm like, all right, Klay, I'm out. I'm going to get some lunch. All right, cool. Come back 3 hours later. He's downstairs in the hub playing ping pong with a swimmer. Like just like awesome dude. Like just doesn't care. He doesn't even know he's an NBA player. He just like does his own thing. But otherwise, Harrison Barnes was kind of really good teammate. We had really good discussions about everything, man. We could talk about.
He's a switched on guy.
We talk about stuff about race, religion, this, that. What do you think about these views, politics, and like we disagreed on a lot of stuff and agreed, but we could have that amicable adult relationship without taking it personally. And he had a very similar sense of humor to myself, so we got along instantly, really quickly.
Now, I want to finish on Ben Simmons. Do you think he can have a career resurgence and get back to being the best Ben Simmons we've seen in the NBA?
I think it's all free throws. I went through a little bit of a...
You said it's like the Yits.
I had the Yits from the line. After I broke my elbow, I started getting hacked a little bit, and it messed with me a little bit, and getting that back took me 4 or 5 years to get back to a place mentally where I could where I was like NBL. So kind of like the last 3 years I was fine with it. So I know what he's gone through, but it's all people say. Oh, he doesn't play hard. He's always hurt. It's nothing to do with that. It's all mental, bro. Like he does not want to get to the free throw line.
Because he's the only other Australian #1 pick. Have you guys conversed with each other? Does he reach out to you at all?
A little bit early on in his career, before he got drafted, and once he got drafted and kind of clutch LeBron, all that kind of stuff. That was kind of his guy, which was fine. No problem with that. We have no hard feelings with each other. We don't really have a relationship. He doesn't really have a relationship with any of the Australians. Maybe Paddy Mills now because they're on the same team. But it's all free throws, man. And his game's all predicated on rim presence and rim attacks. He doesn't want to get to the rim. So if you watch games this season, I don't know how much you watch their games. When's the last time he dunked on someone?
No, he gets scared and passes
Look
out.
at his Philly highlights. He was when he turned the corner, you're like, oh shit, like I might get dunked on as a big here. Because he wasn't thinking about it. He wasn't thinking about now he's thinking about getting fouled.
That's why
he gets to the rim and he'll cross over and shoot a hook shot, or he'll shoot a floater, or he'll kick it out. He doesn't want to get fouled.
It's shocking seeing his old Philadelphia highlights.
Man,
where
he was
like,
on
as a
the
rookie,
rim, just bam in the paint. So
Needs to get that
his
confidence
thing
back.
is like, you know, my co-host on the podcast, American guy, Mike Procopio, awesome guy. Boston accent, Rogue Bogues, Boston accent with a lisp, heavy set dude, just fucking takes a piss. His whole thing is, I don't want to see Ben Simmons in the off-season on an Instagram video, shooting jumpers in a wife beater and knocking them all down. I don't want to see that. He needs to get with a psychologist, sports psych, and just, man, if you miss a free throw, it's not the end of the world, bro. Like, you're doing a lot of good, even if you go 0 for 4 or, 5 for 11, you put people in foul trouble, you're attacking the paint. We need that Ben Simmons back. Until he gets that back, he's not he doesn't shoot threes, right? So he can't hide just by shooting jumpers and getting away with it, right? Because he doesn't get to the line.
Yeah.
His whole game's predicated on paint attacks.
So then what's his optimal position? Point guard, power forward? What do you...
He's a point. He hates. He was with the national team for one training session before he bailed on us a couple of years ago, and I was on the same team as him. Ben, you got the 4. I'm not a 4. I'm not a forward. Like in this lineup, bro, we've got like 3 guards, me and you, bro. Like you're
the tallest guy.
Yeah, so he hates being called a 4. So he's a point, but he'll end up. He's ended up being a 0.5 really, because you can't shoot the ball, so you can't play him at a natural point guard position unless you have 4 shooters. So if you have a Brook Lopez at the 5 and another shooter at the 4, you can hide his shooting. But I think the days are gone where teams, if they acquire him in a trade or even Brooklyn, are going to build around him. I think those days are gone. He now has to go into a role-playing guy. But until he gets his free throw confident enough and at 60-odd%, I don't think much is going to change.
And do you see him maybe playing for the Boomers, or because he's pulled out, I don't know, 2-3 times now?
Never.
Nah?
My whole thing is I hope he does. Would want him, but I won't believe it until I see it. Once bitten, twice shy. We've had conversations with him and tried to get him in the team numerous times, and thought we were over that in 2019, and then just kind of left abruptly, and we never saw him again, and then didn't play in 21 because of the whole fallout with Philly, and I think it all came down to the free throw and the mental health stuff.
Because 2024 Olympics, if you can do me a personal favour, get Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving on the team.
Kyrie we can't. He's played for the US. Kyrie's done and dusted. But there's the thing with the 2024 team, man. He's like, someone's getting screwed.
There's a lot of talent.
Josh Green, Paddy Mills, Joe Ingles, Dante Exum's killing in Europe, by the way. Shout out to Dante Exum. Josh Green. You've got a bunch of guys in that guard spot. You can't take them all. Ben Simmons, you can't take them all.
Josh Giddey.
Someone's gonna get.
See Aussies on the world stage.
Yeah, we can have a whole team almost filled with NBA players, which
That's
is
awesome.
huge.
People can find you at Andrew Bogut
Everywhere,
on
yeah.
Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
What are your plans for 2023 going forward? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so at Andrew Bogut on all the socials, at Rogue Bogues is on all the podcast stuff. We're in the middle of doing this, gentlemen. So I'm in the middle of building a studio.
Can you get down there and see it?
Yeah,
mate?
we'll go to video. We'd love to have you once you're up there. So we're going to go to video and try to promote it and give it a fair shake. And getting more and more people reaching out to sponsor the show and be involved in it. I'm kind of taking it easy. Just want to see how it goes. But we're about to hit 2 million listens in 2 years for the podcast itself, which is pretty good considering no video. And people like what we're putting out. So continue to put things out and engage with the basketball community. And even outside of that, we do a car show. We do a bunch of different stuff. So keep pushing that and. Raising 2 young kids, man, trying to navigate them through the crazy world and stay focused on becoming adults and enjoying their childhood.
I'm sure they'll have some good years ahead if you're leading them. Nah, mate, really appreciate your time. Thank you for jumping on. There you guys have it. One of the greatest Aussies to ever do it. Thank you, Ian.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Legend.